Well, welcome to another episode Out of the Blank podcast. I'm here with Davis.
Hi. Hi, everybody.
Where are you, Davis? You're in an undisclosed location, and I love it.
I am currently in my closet. It is very cramped in here and very nice and dark, as you can see.
Okay,
Um,
here, quick thought. Ready? When you're going to the bathroom, do you think that you should have a TV in there?
no, most definitely not. I think like at the most, maybe like what if you're like listening to an audiobook or a podcast, like carry it with you. Or if you're playing like a video game, maybe carry it with you. But like a TV is a bit too much.
Because
Unless it's like in your shower.
I was thinking about it because my grandpa, like at his house, he has a TV in the bathroom, and I'm like, why do you need this in there? Like you have a mini plasma screen, and you have one in the kitchen too, so like you're never missing a moment of TV. And he goes, yeah. He goes, well, sometimes I like to sit in there and relax for a little while. And I'm like, all right, I spend probably my max time I ever spend in a bathroom is about 3.5 hours. So I can understand why you'd want a TV in there because you're probably like me. But maybe if your closet had more like a refrigerator, had a couch in there and all this stuff, it would make sense to spend a lot of time in there.
I mean, yeah, it's only about as wide as like my elbows my arm can go out, and I can't go out like my full wingspan. So but I'm actually really happy with it. I lucked out when I moved up here like a year ago, 2 years ago, no, a year and a half ago, and just got like it's actually really far back and long.
Yeah, I noticed
So
that you like leaned back. I was like, holy shit, it's like a hallway a little bit.
I know. Yeah, so it actually goes back like I'm like taking up one half, and this is actually what I use for my podcast studio and for anything having to do with recording is like all done here. And it's actually really swell because I had like this HelloFresh subscription that I signed up for because of the Spirits podcast, I think. Um and during the winter months they give you insulation to keep everything like nice and cozy as it like gets to your
Yeah.
box. And so of course I have like all of it taped up for like soundproofing. And then I learned like this new trick from a friend of mine where instead of covering yourself up with a blanket, you can actually just wrap a blanket around your microphone, which is what I'm doing right now. um and I actually have I used to so I have like this little table here that my friend gave me. It's like this, and I've had this since I moved here. And it's like just like a tiny um just like a little side table, and that's like what my computer rests on. And I used to record in a chair, and then I figured out that all I had to do is just like set down some pillows and I'm good and ready to record, because all I need to do is just kneel in front of the microphone instead of like leaning down over the microphone in a chair.
God damn, you should write a freaking book on budget podcasting.
I mean, actually, I learned most of this from my friends who also record in their closets, and like, I have like a lot of other friends who they build like budget boxes, and they're basically just like insulation boxes that they like put their microphone in. They have soundproofing all around the microphone, and then they just like carry it with them whenever they go on a trip.
I swear podcasting has made me think if I was ever going to design my own house. Like, you ever hear about those people like, I made my own house? And I'm like, okay, so you designed the kitchen to look like this? Like, why the fuck is the dishes up top? Aren't they at the bottom? It's like, what do you mean? Dishes are always up top. I'm like, in my house, dishes are at the bottom of the shelf, not the top of the shelf where it's like really hard to reach. Made me think if I design my own house, because I was podcasting the other day and my house is like an open floor plan. You do not realize how hard that is when you're trying to podcast. Like, I'm in my room, the door's shut. Next thing I know, I'm hearing someone talk on the phone in the living room. And I'm like, holy shit, I just come out and go, and you know how ridiculous this sounds? Can you keep it down? We're in a fucking open floor plan. Like, it was just like, even the person I was yelling at just looked up and started laughing. Like, just the fact of saying open floor plan was like this whole, like, seems so sophisticated. But it's like, really, as a kid, I mean, it even had me fascinated with like secret hiding spots. We're always looking to a place to kind of escape that we can kind of call our own a little bit. Well, imagine with the White House, all those secret tunnels that they have and shit. if I design a house, I would love to have secret tunnels in my house. Like you pull this or you spin the drywall and a bookcase opens up and you go back there. There's a back pamphlet to the wall and shit. It's like a private recording studio with a waterfall and like butterflies and shit. Like, how did all this? You have Charlie and the Chocolate Factory in your house. I'm like, yeah, it's amazing.
Um, I saw, I've been on TikTok since the quarantine started, and I actually just came across this one TikTok, I think like 2 days ago, yesterday actually, and it was like, guys don't want anything except for one thing, and that's a secret passage that they can build into their house. And I'm like, yes, most
Goddamn
definitely.
right.
Like I watched way too much Scooby Doo as a kid to not want a giant library and a secret passage that can go from like the library to the study, and like also on top of that, like I um it's it's become like a big consideration of mine. Like if I ever move house again or like move to a different apartment, um what closet space is going to look like where I'm going to be able to record anything and like what I'm going to have to adapt to. Because like here I have planes like flying overhead like every 10-20 minutes or so. Um
You live next to an
because
airport?
we're actually we're 10 minutes away, a 10 minutes drive away from LaGuardia. Um so we're really close. And so in my like first season of like bloopers, you'll just hear me like go like, God damn you planes. And like just like and like get like really paranoid. Like where like I'll like huddle over and be like, hold on, wait. I think I can hear it. And then like you'll hear like those like small buzzing off in the background that gets louder and louder as it gets closer.
At least it's not like living in like New York or Detroit where there's like some apartments that are right next to where like the metro system is or the subway system. So next thing you know, all you hear is this giant train just go by on the tracks at like 5 o'clock in the morning. Like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Imagine that going around every 20 minutes, just a whole wall shaking and stuff like an earthquake.
Yeah, and I have only ever seen that once, and I was in Chicago, and we were staying like this one hotel that was actually really close to that one overhead train track, and it didn't shake that badly, but like if we were any closer, it probably would have.
What's your perfect, like if I was going to give you a budget of like it's an unlimited budget. We're playing fucking Sims. You can design your house however you want. What's your budget of your perfect podcast studio? Like what would you envision it? Cuz like I thought about it. I'm a very low grade guy. Like not even before like 640 episodes was when the shift changed. You saw my video change a little bit. It's because I got a desk, I got a new mic, I got all this stuff, but even a new chair. I was fine sitting on a stool and just doing it in like the most uncomfortable chair and do it with like a low budget stuff. I mean, I like the quality of it, but it's like there's a sense of like too professional. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm a simple man when it comes to like how I would want my studio to be like in a nice soundproof room, but like a giant window that I can just look out while I talk to you or something like that, where I can just keep envisioning, you know, I see like two deers fucking in the side and talking about the economic climax of the global system of government. I don't know, just going into some deep shit while two birds are just going at it.
Um, if I had like an unlimited budget, I'm not sure if I would go like full music studio, like with like an actual like like a sealed off soundproof booth where like you can have like a setup and
The
like a
button that says
recording.
on air or something like that, where you flick it.
Exactly. But like I think one thing I really want to prioritize is being able to have a soundproof space for like actors to be able to act in that space as a and like to be able to so that way you can actually have scenes with actors interacting with each other as opposed to splicing together their dialogue to make it sound as if they're interacting with one another. Um, I'm I think that's like one thing that I have been really envious of when it comes to like a lot of the bigger podcast studios is that they have access to studio spaces. And so because of that, you're able to get very organic bloopers and dialogue. And especially with like the bloopers, a lot of like the bloopers that you hear for audio, specifically like from the bigger studios, are because of creator, writer, and actor interactions with one another as opposed to sitting by yourself in your recording space in your closet or your bedroom, wherever it is, and being by yourself. I, for one, like, am very vocal when it comes to, like, my bloopers, so, like, I'll acknowledge, like, when I mess up or, I have absolutely horrendous diction, and, of course, I went to podcasting. Um, and so, because of that, like, I'll go on, like, I'll just have to repeat words over and over again, and I'll, hum little songs to myself and, like, just make fun of myself as I go along, but I have friends who, when they record, they won't say anything if they mess up. They'll just get shut down, get really quiet, and then re-say the line. And when you're making bloopers, it's a little hard to like string together something really big when you don't have like that report that a lot of bigger studio spaces have.
I think if you have the option to do it like professionally like that, and that's what you want to do, do it. But I look at it like I saw someone on like Instagram or something was talking about how like they commented on something like you don't have like I have a better setup or just naming their setup that they had. And I was like, who gives a shit? Like a lot of these people are just doing it for the first time off their phone. Like you don't have to have a professional equipment. You don't need to have a $500 microphone. You don't need to have any of this stuff. And that's coming from someone that had a $20 microphone off Amazon for most of his episodes. And I just got this thing that was a gift. So I was
It's
like,
a
I
super
wouldn't
pretty mic.
it looks like a giant dick, like right in the face view of things. But it sounds good. You know, I still have to get some more equipment stuff for it, but it's like this whole concept of like I just was enjoying what I was doing, and it gave like most people I were talking to were coming off of a phone. So it was like I didn't need the professional equipment. I didn't care so much about it. Yeah, it might help sound quality, but I enjoy what the growth of it was. It was a different thing for me. And I think a lot of people lose track in the sense of wanting to be like professional. And I tell people, like someone complained about like, how can you say it's not radio? How can you say it's not this? I'm like, because it's fucking not radio. Anybody that thinks podcasting is radio, you can do it in that style, but it's not radio. My parents are in radio. They own radio stations. I could have did radio. It's not fucking radio. It's something completely unique and different. And that's what you need to capitalize is that the fact that you can make it whatever you want. You can make it as professional as you want. I love it when someone goes, I'm trying to get them as a guest. You can fill out this email. We could book this time in the calendar. I'm like, fucking just let me know when you're free. I'm not like I don't have a calendar. I sit there and write all the fucking times down and shit. I just say, what's this? Is this time good for you? You want to do earlier? Sure, let's do earlier. And they're like, well, you're not very professional. I'm like, fuck, I'm a fucking 23-year-old kid talking about poop sometimes on his podcast. You think I give a fuck about being professional? It's this whole sense of like, don't lose yourself. Don't lose, so much by investing thousands and thousands of dollars into nice ass equipment and nice ass studio. If you want to do that, sure, but don't feel like you're pressured into it or you need to. If you want to record out of your fucking closet, record out of your closet. Sometimes that's better than anything. It's about how much do you care about what you're doing? How much do you love creating content and then hearing feedback on it when a listener's like, that was a great fucking episode. Your bloopers were hilarious. It's the best feeling in the world. I'm like, if someone else can see that and you can't, there's the issue. You need to find what that person sees in it and realize you do have quality content.
I'm one of those people who I really acknowledge that like there's like a really big like it's really interesting watching what people do with professional quality microphones and all of that versus like very low quality microphones. There is, I think, a point to where it is unlistenable if it is like really, really low quality.
Yeah.
Like I've tried to listen to maybe like 2 or 3 podcasts where like I just couldn't get through it because like the mic quality was just, off the charts bad. But if you're able to like study enough and recognize like, oh, I'm supposed to insulate the space around this, or here's what I'm supposed to do with like the sound after like I'm done editing. Like it's that kind of effort that I really appreciate, and you can actually hear it like as it comes across. I think it's really interesting too, because a lot of people in the audio drama sphere deal with different mediums in terms of like you have like found footage and then or like just or like a TV show for your ears. And what I think is really interesting is that a lot of professional studios try to replicate the recording quality of like bad audio off of a phone or from like another device. And then some people who are very have like are just recording with their phones or like what we with a snowball Yeti microphone, and then like they do like a really good job. So yeah, just it's never ever going to be about like the quality of the stuff that you have. It's just what you're able to put out.
Would you say you're more of a podcaster or an audio drama?
I'm definitely more of an audio drama guy.
Okay.
I did try to make a podcast project with a friend a while ago, but we just realized that like it just wasn't going to work out because of 2020 and all that.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm far too much of a rambler to do a podcast.
That's kind of what podcasting is a lot of the time. Like that's kind of the stick to my show if you haven't really caught the drift.
Yeah, no, I mean like uh I'm definitely one of those people who goes on like on because I was never really good at talking to people growing up at all. And like that just translates when it comes to talking on a podcast. Like I ramble a lot, I tend to go off on a tangent, and like while it works well for this format, it didn't work for the format that I was working on with my friend, where it was going to be discussing a medium, a specific series of books, and then going off topic on like another thing. And it was just impossible for me to like really meet that level of structure. Um,
Well, it's like
and
trying to find a niche in a show that you just can't get down with. Like my buddy does a Star Wars podcast, but I haven't seen any of the new shit. I've only seen the old ones. So when I come on, it's just what if episodes. Like I'm just shooting like what if the Death Star had railings on it? Maybe less people would fall off and die. You know what I mean? Like it's just stupid thoughts like that because I can't get down with the new ones. So I wouldn't be able to be on his show 24/7 talking about all the facts and knowledge of Star Wars because I don't really I'm not a huge giant fan of Star Wars. I'm not a giant fan of Star Trek. I got other options in my brain that I want to go down. So we wouldn't create a show like that. I think it's really strange because like on Twitter, I had saw somebody complain about creating content, one episode a week, but they were saying that like their episodes were 5 minutes long. And they were complaining about how hard it is to crank content. Sorry, guys, new episode out this week. And I'm like, that's not a that's not a podcast. That's a fucking thought. Like that's a thought. That's you just recorded a thought. And someone commented and was like, you're gatekeeping the idea of podcasting. I'm like, I'm really not. I just look at if you can't make 5 minutes of content to post to people that want to hear you speak, then why are you doing it? It didn't make sense to me. I mean, I get it if you're having a rough week or something, but like, sorry guys, third week in a row, not gonna be able to post. I'm like, bro, you can make a song that's longer than that episode of that podcast. It didn't make sense to me. I'm like, it's supposed to be like at least a minimum of 15 minutes. And then the difference between audio drama is it's a story. Podcasts can tell stories, but they're not like books. They're not. That's why we're as a society we're so I guess amazed with the fact of how we can really put something in a niche category. But podcasting has turned into this term that's like an umbrella for fucking 50 different things. I'm like, hang on a second. Those are all separate things. You know, somebody that's making audio drama, that's not a podcast. That's an audio drama. That's way fucking different because you're doing a lot more work, in my opinion. I mean, podcasts, I can just turn on the mic and start fucking talking. Audio drama, you got to edit, hours of editing, multiple voice actors coming in, creating a story, making sure the plots go together. You have 20 hours of content gets chopped down into 30 minutes. Like that's ridiculous. So like that I see as like a disservice of the whole thing. But then podcasting has its difficulties too. But it's just like this whole thing of like, no, get really specific with it. If we can classify someone as a liberal and then they're a libertarian or there's some other bullshit, then you should be able to classify this. It's like the hemp industry, hemp, marijuana, cannabis, all that. It's an umbrella term, but they're all separate different drugs. So I'm like, why the fuck are we all doing it under one thing? Call it what it is. Let's talk about that specific thing. You don't like weed, you like hash. That shit really messes you up. You know, it's that specificness. That's everyone loves that, but then there's some things we're just not rolling off of the factor of it. It's like, here's gum. Well, what gum is it? We have Trident 5. Get specific with that shit. I want to know the detail. That was a rant.
No, I was just about to say, like, speaking of like 5 minute segments, there is like a branch of audio fiction which is labeled as microfiction. and it's literally
You got a
5 to 10 minute
category.
long. Yeah. I think we inherently love to categorize things just because it allows for us to organize things and like pay attention to patterns within those things. Um, but like me especially, I love categories and I love being able to see like which don't exactly fit those labels. Um, what I've noticed a lot about like the podcasting industry in terms of like um people's production value of it is that is a lot like YouTube and like where there are people who are professionally making content and make money off of making that content. And there are people who are working day jobs and aren't able to produce as much content or are working by themselves. So like that's what I think is really interesting about podcasting is that it's one of those industries where there are a lot of people coming in with a lot of money and they're able to produce like very high quality content very quickly, as opposed to people who are just starting out. And especially like in the audio drama sphere, like I know people who have taken like 2 years to finish their first season because it's a hobby. And that's what I think is really interesting about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not in any way professional at all, or I would have like a because I started around 2.5 years ago, but the person that helped me the most was around my 90th episode. He introduced me to Zoom, and that's when I could start doing these. And that's when I started. I mean, all mine first 90 were in person. So it was like really hard to get random strangers to come over your house, sit on your couch after not knowing who you are and just having a full on 3 hour chat with them. You got deeper discussions when you're in person, but it was a sense of like, I can't just keep meeting people on the street and saying, "Hey, my name's Robbie. You want to come to my house and shoot a podcast?" It's like, what? I don't even fucking know you. Um, but then he was teaching me about all the equipment. He has, I think at the time he had 115 episodes when I first started talking to him when I was at 90. Now I'm at like 600 and something and he's at 200 something. Like it's a hobby thing that he does, but he does like a professional style of interviewing, which is different from me. Obviously, I'm a conversation guy. We could just talk about whatever. But he showed me a lot of things. He had way better equipment, and I was just like, it's all about like what time do you want to give, what how much effort do you want to put into it. It's gonna what's gonna make it grow. But I've heard people that are basic stuff off a cell phone, really fucking good stuff, content. And then I've heard people that are full on professionals that are just boring as fuck. And it's all depends on what you like, man. You know, I don't think having $10,000 equipment definitely helps, but it's obviously you. That's what they're going to listen to for the fucking hour and a half or however long you're talking. You know what I mean? It's like what makes that entertaining for them to listen to? Can they vibe with your voice? Can they vibe with like, you know, your personality? Do you crack jokes? Do you just go off on rants? Do you do whatever? That's what people want to hear, you know, in an audio drama, they want to hear the story as much as they want to hear good quality. They just really want to hear that, like, wow, this dude just got murdered like first 2 seconds. Are you kidding me? Like, I'm just sat down and start taking my shit. And you know, it goes into this whole thing.
Yeah, no. That's why I think it's a lot like YouTube in the way that like just because you come in with professional equipment doesn't mean that you are going to be guaranteed a ludicrous amount of viewers. It's like as opposed to, you know, like one hit wonders on YouTube or like people who like rise very quickly on YouTube or now like TikTok, where like there are people who are just make like really random content and because it's very uniquely them, they're able to rise up to the top. And what I think is really interesting is that TikTok has been getting a lot of comparisons to Quibi lately because of its like minute long format. And so Quibi had millions of dollars sunken into this product of theirs, had celebrity names attached to every single show, was producing all this different content. But the problem was, is that no one was able to get attached to a lot of the shows apparently. But with TikTok, I've been seeing people who go and make like minute long series and they'll go and create like, and you'll only be able to see like one scene. And it's a minute long and it's like beautifully done. And that's what I love about like catching up on like some of like what TikTok is doing right now is because um like there's this one creator who has recently moved to YouTube because he wanted to make like longer form videos of like what he was already producing on TikTok. But when he started off on TikTok, it was he was making like 6-part series, or where, for example, where he plays every single one of the characters, and every single time it's just like comedy gold.
Your TikTok content must be curated a lot better than mine because every time I click on it, it's like mental health disorders where I stopped making it. I was never going to make a TikTok. Like there's a videos of people you could tell that are like this one dude had straight up shaved all of his teeth like you would to get veneers. He shaved it all and he was just sitting into the camera looking at it and smiling while this song was playing in the background. And it was like the weirdest shit. And I'm like, then I saw a video of my favorite comedians posted from Your Mom's House podcast. Tom Segura and Christina Pazitsky, they posted a video of an old guy wearing a train conductor hat, and he was just naked swinging his crotch in front of the TikTok camera. And there was just a song playing in the background. You understand that if you look hard enough, you will find mental health issues on TikTok where it's like these people are not supposed to be having, this type of device to be able to create content. And it's like, you get to notice the world has some really crazy ass shit in it. Like there's a person doing what was it? As a kid, he said it was like supposed to be a video of like a country song, and it says when she calls you crying about her boyfriend, and the kid picks up his phone, starts mouthing off into the camera like like mouthing words, and he answers the phone, and he goes, "I'll be right there." Shuts the flip. It's a flip phone, so that's even fucking better. Flips it, puts it in his pocket, turns his hat around, and then starts boxing like in the camera, and you could tell the kid's like really goofy. Probably not the most popular kid in school. And I'm like, this is why I don't like TikTok. You can make fun of people like this. And I'm like, this is just, and all I guess it depends on what you're curating, but I'm like, God damn, the content of this is just insane. How people like you can make a quick video like that, get a million hits. That's like Vine. Vine was the biggest thing back in the day because it was funny, quick 5-second videos. Then you know what happened? Vine was gone. Those stars made millions of dollars. Brittany Furlan, you know who she is?
I think so.
She was the one that was how could I explain her? She was you would know the Vine if I showed you the Vine, but she was like coming out of a
I would probably definitely know the
she
Vine.
she was coming out of a pool wearing a bikini, long black hair, kind of like I guess that's really she was like the only girl I would say on Vine that got super super popular from it. But she ended up now she's married to Tommy Lee from Rush. So it's like what the fuck? Like she got insanely famous, made a lot of money, and then Vine was over with. And then now she had to find a new avenue to go towards. I think that's like that with all these trends. Like you can put in a little bit of effort and you could be top hit. Or you could put in a lot of effort and you see that slow growth. It just depends on what are you really doing it for. When a band gets together, every member of the band has to talk about what do they want out of this. Do you want to be famous? Do you want chicks? Do you want to do it for the drugs? Are you doing it for money? If you don't classify that all up front, later it falls apart.
Yeah, it's like with everything, it's just there's always going to be that really big luck factor. Like someone's going to get big at like the right time because they have the right personality, the right video, or like the right look. And that's just the way like everything is. And so especially of like TikTok and Vine, um it and like it's the same thing with YouTube where you weren't having to be, like a crazy big star in order to get famous. You could be famous from like a minute long video of you dancing in your room and then tripping and falling and hitting your head on the desk. Like it's as simple as that. And like that's what I think is really interesting is that as TikTok gets bigger, all of a sudden we're going to have people who are producing content professionally. Like for example, Hank Green recently moved from YouTube to TikTok in order to see what everything was going on, and now is one of the biggest TikTok accounts. Um, and so with Hank Green, he has to produce content regularly, and so do like a lot of other people in order to keep up with the algorithm. Um, and what I think is really interesting is that a lot of people are able to, well, it's really hard to predict how the algorithm works. I know like a lot of people are getting frustrated with it in terms of like its predictability, but it's really cool that TikTok has come out with a creators fund. So people are able to have their TikTok be monetized, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, making money off TikTok videos. I mean, I'm not saying that's not an avenue to go down towards. I just don't think you should expect it to ever be something there you're going to make $1 billion of it. Like I know people that are like,
Oh no.
we're gonna make TikToks to be famous. It's like, don't go into thinking that. Just be happy if it happens. You know, it's like this whole. I don't think Dogface, whatever that one guy is, where it's a video of him drinking cranberry juice on a skateboard while the song Dreams is playing.
Mhm.
Okay, that famous one, that would not have been as popular if we weren't in the midst of a pandemic and everybody was on the point of like life's just meaningless. You know what I mean? It was like a sense of hope in a dark time. You know, that video really kind of snuck in and gave people like this quick laugh, like watching a cat video when you've had a rough day. Like it was like this whole like sense of light in this like dark times. I don't think he would have been as popular if that this whole pandemic thing wouldn't have happened. But it's like that. Did he expect that to happen? No, he's probably just trying to make a couple people smile. You know, it's having that whole entire thing of just really doing it because you love it is my main thing. I don't think this is going to be something that I'm going to make money off of. I don't really care. I've just learned so much from it because I've already seen why I love it so much through the people I've met and the like Christmas was the biggest example. So a few weeks ago when that came around, I was getting Christmas cards from people I had podcasted with. And I'm like, fuck. Like you start to notice what is the main thing you're really loving about what you're doing, and that is the connections that you're making rather than like, oh, my podcast isn't monetized. Who gives a fuck? Be happy you have people that are listening to you, people that want to chat with you, all this type of stuff. I'm like, that's the best part when you start looking at things with why you love doing it rather than what can get me to the next day. People are looking for a way of trying to make money so they don't have to go to this miserable job every single day. And change your job, man. Like you put so much amounting pressure on something, you end up ruining the flavor. Like when you think like, oh my God, I've heard this cheesecake is like the best cheesecake all around. Then you go there and eat it, you're like, it's all right. It's like, yeah, because you put so much faith into it, thinking it was gonna bring people back from the dead when they ate it.
I yeah, no, that's definitely the attitude to take on with everything. I mean, like if you don't love what you're doing, then what's the point of doing it at all?
Unless it's crack.
I mean,
That kind of holds up.
what? I mean, yeah, I would say definitely don't do crack.
Damn, I was trying to be a sponsor for crack. Sponsor the podcast.
um, shoot, what was that?
Oh, crack. Okay, go back to what you were saying. I lost your train of thought. I'm sorry. That's my fault.
Um, yeah, it's
Do it because you love it.
yes, do things because you love to do it. And that's what I think is really interesting about podcasting as well as any form of the arts really is that everyone is a fan of the medium that they like the most. And so podcasters are always fans of other podcasts. And it's the same thing with YouTube. It's like people who are YouTubers love other YouTubers, and the same thing with TikTok. And that's something that I absolutely love to see is a sense of community get brought up in between creators, and they all bolster each other up and like love each other and support each other. And it's so nice to see every single time. Like the one thing I really, really miss like pre-pandemic was I would go to these monthly meetups where I would get to see a bunch of other podcast creators, and they're always like the best nights here in New York. And it only happened once a month, but like, or maybe twice a month if there was a birthday. But every single time I looked forward to it because like it was just the greatest breath of fresh air, like every single time.
It's more positive, I think, when it's like in person, like other groups of podcasters meeting in person. But when it's over the internet, it's sometimes more negative. Like I know there's this whole like branch and divide between East Coast and West Coast podcasters. Like I've come across that where I'm like, "What's your time zone?" They're like, "I'm West Coast." I'm like, "Okay, cool." And then it's like, yeah, I'll promote the show and everything when it comes out. I'm like, "It's cool, man. Like I don't really care if you promote it or not. I'm just happy you're giving me your time to be on it." And he starts making like 50,000 posts before we even record. Like I'm like, bro, don't do that because then people are going to be pressuring you and pressuring me of when the episode's going to come out. We haven't even recorded yet. It might be a week. I don't do these live. And he goes, don't tell me how to run my shit. You're East Coast, bro. You're not West Coast podcast. That's not what we do on the West Coast. I'm like, holy shit. Like consider it not even happening, because like there's no point if we're already getting into this confrontation. That stuff you come across, it's because there's a disconnect between with social media. There's this nonsense of whenever you type out a message, you get a word across or something. If it's written like anytime through our messaging, me and you back and forth, there could have been a slip up of miscommunication based on if you were driving at some point and you decided to voice text and you sent something that could have been not properly said or not thoroughly thought because your voice text picked it up a certain way. The miscommunications, the lack of not being able to actually physically talk to that person and understand that brings this sense of tension with it as well, which I mean, I don't know, it's because if you might be relatively new to the whole idea of other podcasters, a lot of it is pretty positive, but the issue is it's a game. And when it becomes a game of who can get the most followers, who gets the most listens, who goes for this idea of popularity, you start doing some really shady stuff, which is like stealing other people's followers or doing all this type of stuff. And I'm just like, why? Why did you go on my followers list and follow every single one that follows me and then unfollow them when they followed you back? I'm just kind of sitting there like shaking my head, like kind of fucking Marilyn Manson insane psychopathic shit is that? Like, are you gonna sniff my socks and kill me? Like, it makes me think on that level. Or I'm like, oh my god, I had to cut off social media because of it. It gets tense. That's another rant.
Oh no, I was just gonna say like I've seen like drama, but I've never seen like that kind of like a big disparity between like the East Coast and West Coast of, well, at least in audio drama. I'm not sure like what the divide between podcasting is like.
Audio drama
Um
is probably a lot more positive because I think it's a lot more niche when it comes to podcasts. Like, yeah, you can have horror communities and stuff like that, but audio dramas, nope, nobody that creates a script is thinking the same exact thing. Like they're like movies. Like, yeah, you might have the same idea, but it's never like the same way. You know what I mean? It's always like a different take on stuff. But podcasting is like most of the time you're talking to a conversation podcast, they're all focusing on the same exact topics and shit. It's like they're all focused, like, what is the public going to want? That's the issue. When you start worrying about what the listener wants to hear, then you lose yourself. Sometimes they just want to listen to you. Sometimes they want to hear your thoughts on the world. Like, I bet you could do this podcast for sure. Anybody could do my podcast for sure. Anybody could run this shit the exact same way, but nobody's going to have the same thoughts as me. No fucking way. That unless I have never met that person and I wish to talk to that person one day because that would be amazing. I would ask him, what do you think about ladybugs and why do they have spots?
I I it's for me is like that exact sentiment when it comes to actual play podcasts. Like I have to make sure that I like every single person in order to like follow their journey. Um Sometimes I'll be in it because I'm familiar with the production team behind it, like Multitudes Join the Party, or um the Dark Dice, which is by the team behind the White Vaults, or Atypical Artists Arcs, and I love those because I love supporting those people, and I've been trying to branch out into other ones, and so I need to I really pay attention to like whether or not I like their podcasting like style, I guess, is like, for lack of a better term, like the way they talk and the way they talk to each other especially is like something that I really pay attention to.
Like
Um
excuse me. I had one of my favorite podcasts I used to listen to. I stopped listening to it because I reached out to the guy to be on my podcast and he was just a complete like asshole. And I was like, now when I listen to him, I was like, damn, I know who you really are. You're not who you are when I listen to you. So it was like this whole shift and kind of like, yeah, don't meet your heroes, but at the same time, like I don't think you should have heroes, to be honest with you. There should be people you idolize, but you should always know they're people, man. You know, not everybody has a great day where they're going to be 100% themselves. Like you start to look at a lot of content out there. How much of it is the person being authentic? Like I've been the exact same way for 600 and something episodes. Like, and that's just because at the beginning I was like, do I want to go buy Shiznit Cracker 24 or some shit? No, because I don't think I could keep that up and do this style of thing. I have to be myself because that's the only way I'm going to be in that 24/7, whether it's 1 a.m. or 10 p.m., whatever the fuck time it is. You know, it's this whole entire thing of like, my thoughts are my thoughts. And I think that's a much purer version because we all kind of want to be someone that's not ourselves. And I look at that in the world and everything that goes on, whether it's society standards of things. How much do you see of wanting to be somebody else or wanting to do this or because it gets you looking like this or something? Nobody ever wants to express their like inner thing unless they're like owning a brothel or something. Then they know like you can express your inner honus, that freak, you know, nobody ever talks about that. We just stigmatize sexualizations of things. So I'm like, why are we stigmatizing who we are as people? Why are we stigmatizing our thoughts and feelings and emotions based on somebody might not like us because of them? Just be yourself.
Yeah, I've seen like that discussion pop up a lot online, especially when it comes to influencing and mental health. I know that like there are a lot of influencers who are known, especially like in the gay community, like there are a lot of people who are like known for having like a really ripped bod. And the thing is that a lot of people have been talking about the fact that like a lot of them are models or a lot of them are taking pictures of like they don't have a personal Instagram. They only have like their branded Instagram because they're an influencer and like that's like what they do and like what they enjoy doing. Um, and so a lot of them are actually trying to make like much more authentic posts that like open up about like where they are right now and like their mental health journey and like where they are in their physical journey, what's going on in their lives. And what I think is really interesting is that a lot of people are leaning more towards that direction because we I think we're much better able to sniff out different types of advertising. Um, and that might be due to the fact that like our generation just grew up with advertisements. And so when you have like really authentic approaches to things, like that's what we get attracted to. And so and I think it's like there's always just gonna be a balance between um being too closed off and being far too open when it comes to anything. It's just a lot to do with like the different personalities that we portray when we talk to different people. Like we're all going to act differently when we're with family than we are with your boss or with your friend or with your partner on their first date as opposed to your I don't know, like 100th date with them. And the thing is, like, we're all going to be different and we're all going to make mistakes and we're all going to say things out of turn and we're all going to be able to like express ourselves and people appreciate that. Um, so it, the weird thing is like we're still adapting to what social media is and how it defines us as people. And that's just part of the growing pains that we experience in life in general, like in person, offline.
I think there's just a like kind of connect between the idea of what social media is and the way that we kind of portray it. We seem to care, like there seems to be a lagging back thought most of the time that what is this going to make me look like? What are people going to see me in this light? You know what I mean? There's that kind of like, you could tell there's like eyes watching or judging in a way. And I think that's a lot what social media is, especially with influencers or anything. Somebody's posting something, they're really just kind of posting it to show off a little bit. But there's also a sense of like, I don't want to say like coldness, but a lot of it is just like a really big disconnect from everything else that's going around us. It's became this one, I think it's became more of a crutch than it has been accessible help. You know what I mean? Like if you're gay, straight, whatever the hell, who gives a shit? That doesn't not going to stop me from judging you. That might be my person. I know there's probably people that judge on that stuff, which is terrible. But at the same time, it's like, why do you give a shit? Why, like, people are afraid to be open about how they feel about things. People are afraid to do this or do that because they're afraid someone might not like it or someone might say something. I'm like, be yourself. If that person doesn't like who you are, then why the fuck do you care? Because that's obviously not a friend you want to have. You know what I mean? It's like this whole thing of mentality of like when you were a kid, did you sit at the table that bullied the shit out of you? No. Then why the hell are you going to surround yourself with social media people like that? Like I remember, it's like sport chat. Here we go. When you meet someone for the first time and they're wearing like a Ravens jersey, Oh, you like the Ravens? I do. Then every time you meet that person after that one encounter, it's always the fucking Ravens. It's never any other conversation because the one topic you guys bonded about was sports, and you realize you don't have anything else in common. It's like that with social media. People bond over a certain thing, and then you realize, like, well, I don't really think that way, but I don't want to say it because I don't want to lose them as a friend. It's like, are they a friend though? It's so hard to tell through technology or social media to see if that person is actually, a good friend, if that person's actually likes. Me and you might have a chat and click off one thing, and then every time we talk, we might just keep clicking on one thing. Does that mean like we're best friends? No, it just means we might have one thing that we both agree on, but then we can have so many different views. And I think that brings an area of people trying to close themselves off from other people because they're afraid to say something that might offend somebody. First of all, why are you getting offended at that? Two, there's a way to talk about shit. It's not that hard to just conversate about stuff. I don't know how we got into this weird fucking hole that we're in right now, but it's fucking got me thinking.
I no, I was definitely one of those kids that really struggled with making friends. And I was on more than one occasion all the way up through college and even like out of college. Like I've been in friend groups where I was most definitely like the one being made fun of the group. And so it's there's always like a point where like you need to realize like, oh, the reason why I don't like being like myself around these people is not because they don't like me, but because I don't fit in with them. And that's just something that you have to acknowledge and like accept. And so like for me especially, it's one of those things where it's better to it's a learning curve where you have to place and figure out like just who is your friend in terms of like not only just like can I hang out with these people, but also are they going to be the people who will, I don't know, like support your project once it's out? Will they be the kind of people who like will want to be around you when you're at your lowest? Or are they just the people that will you see like every, like couple of months when like you are invited to a party? Um and so like one thing that like I've made like a really big goal of mine is to find like that, like that friend group that like, people make like, like the cliche TV show one, like, like the one that you have like for like at least 5 years. Um that would be a nice goal, I think.
I think there's a way of like, for instance, I extend this to you as much as I extend it to anybody else that really needs it. If you really need someone to talk to in a time that you're feeling super low, message me. Doesn't mean I'm a friend that's going to be there 24/7, 100% that we're going to hang out every single day. But it's just a normal trait as a people that we should endure is the fact that sometimes some people need help. Sometimes some people need a quick chat or a quick message or just to talk about something. Then it gets them through. That's all it takes. I'm not saying we're not friends. I'm just saying the fact of we don't need to be like, hey, come to my birthday party, come to this, come to that, come over to my house and spend the night. It's nothing like that, but it's like if you need to message when you're feeling down, message me. I extend that to anybody out there because we're all trying to get through this life together. And I feel like how many kids back in the day were too afraid to be themselves on the fact of they wanted to fit into a group that necessarily they might not fit into. Me and my buddy, my best friend, I would say, we we tried to fit into groups and it didn't work. But we both do the same shit now. We barely go out. We just work and we do whatever we do, whether he's playing video games or I'm doing this, not like normal kids our age. But that's just because that's what we fit into. That's why we're best friends. That's why we have this like niche, is because we both understand each other. If I go, it's like that new relationship energy where you walk up and you're like, hey man, you want to go to Fridays? You want to go to the store? It's like, I don't really want to go to the store, but I can't say no because I want to seem cool. Yeah, let's go to the store. It sounds awesome. And then you go. But then by the time like you're like what, a year in or 6 months in, you end up fucking instead of knocking on his door, hey, can he come out and play? No, you just walk in, shit in their toilet, sit down in the thing, and just be like, what do you want to feel like doing? I don't really feel like doing anything. It's like, let's go to the store. It's like, I'm not going to the store. You can go to the store. It's like, there's that connection that, oh my God, I'm fucking comfortable. We need to find a way to get that all the time with everybody. There needs to be an app. That's what it is.
I think shoot, I think it was Bumble that tried to do like a friend app. It was like Bumble. Wait, hold on. Let me see if I get this right. It was Bumble Job, Bumble Friend, and the regular Bumble.
I've
And so
never
you
heard
would
of that.
really, oh, okay, it was great. I mean,
Is it
I
like LinkedIn? Because I keep getting email notifications, and I'm like, "What?" I'm pretty sure I unsubscribed like 5 years ago when I made the LinkedIn.
I don't understand how LinkedIn keeps finding their way into my inbox, but you know. But yeah, no, like Bumble try I think it was Bumble. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was Bumble. And so the thing is like they were already successful as a dating app, and then they decided to launch like a dating app but for jobs and a dating app but for friends. And it was an interesting concept. But it I think they also got sold to another company like soon after that and then they merged. Um but it was still an interesting concept that I think would have been nice to have seen a success story come out of. And that's like the really great thing about social media. And I know that like a lot of people are talking about like how rates of loneliness have been like found to be like a bigger thing and like how kids are dealing with like cyberbullying for the first time ever and how like we're trying to face all these new concepts. But what's really, really great about social media is that you are able to find people who relate to how you think and you were able to find a community and it just becomes more and more specific like for example like you know if before like Instagram took off and Tumblr took off and Twitter took off it was really hard to find a gay community just through Facebook. Like you really couldn't do it unless like you were actively attempting to search and like make friends with people who were gay. So like once Tumblr was a thing, all of a sudden you had people who were like, "Oh, I can find my community and reblog the stuff that I like. I can also take on a different identity and like no one will know who I am, and I can still interact with people under a different persona." And the same thing goes for Twitter, where like you're able to find people who have the same interests and hobbies as you, and like and the thing and Discord is a really big one now. And that's what I love to see. It's like I love to see people who are able to connect over like super minuscule things like finding people who happen to watch like the same like really awful movie you saw like 15 years ago, like I don't know, like on like at 2 o'clock in the morning on some random TV channel and you never found it again until like someone brought it up.
I
Like
like
that's what I really like.
I like the concept of having those small groups. I just don't like what they do with them, which is eventually they seclude the people that aren't and have those characteristics, I would say. Like there's a term on Instagram and like YouTube, or you could type in any term. Like you could be like black podcaster or you could be gay podcaster. Some of those groups, when you try and join into that, if you're not one of them, you get fucking outraged. Like people, comedians have had jokes on this called Black Twitter, where it's like only for that certain ethnicity of people. Comedians that are white have talked about going into that and have crafted full on jokes where they will be screamed and berated at just for even writing a comment, anything like that. Like, you don't deserve to be here. You're not part of this. I get it. More power to you for a group. But you're not ending racism. You complain about it so much, and there's an issue when you're doing that. It doesn't matter who you are. If you're gay and you have a gay community of whatever, let people who aren't gay in. I would like to talk to some of you guys. I still want to chat. It doesn't give a shit. I don't. I've. This is that my issue is. I think we look at people and we categorize them, and that's what I don't like. I think of everybody the exact same. If you're gay, straight, whatever, these communities are helpful in a way, but the way we use it is eventually we end up gatekeeping it, where it's like, you don't deserve to be in here because you're not part of this. And it's like you find a door and it's locked in your house. You end up wanting to try and figure out how do you can unlock that shit. Like I'm just like, I just want to be a part, man. I just want to know what's going on because I feel like the more we keep building up doors or barriers and all this stuff, yeah, the community has its benefits, but then you're also closing off a lot of the openness that we should be having. You know what I mean? Like it's a really hard. I'm not sure. I gotta tread lightly in what I say here because I don't want to come off as like I think all of it's crap. I just look at it like we're building up walls to keep us farther apart from each other. Like there's just a sense of disconnect, that I see with social media too. It's nice to see like grandma post a picture of some cats or something, but it's better to go see grandma. You know what I mean? It's like this whole idea of like, I don't want our sense of closeness and our sense of empathy to be mixed up with just despair when it comes to the fact of how disconnected we are becoming. I mean, social media, the rise of depression that's happening because of COVID, because of people staying home, it's an issue, but it's not going to be solved by doing virtual meetings all the time. It's you need to find a way to be able to talk and actually see these people. You need to have actual physical interactions. This is just like a band-aid. This isn't real. This is like a band-aid kind of fix for the issue. Me and you sitting down having a coffee at a Starbucks or something and chatting it up, way different feeling. You're gonna feel like goosebumps and shit. You're gonna feel like it's just this whole idea of like you're actually here in the moment talking to a random stranger and really enjoying a conversation or something. Social media helps or technology helps, but it's like a false drug of it. It's not the actual thing. It doesn't give the same hormone stimulant, I would say.
I mean, there's always going to be a good side and a bad side the to well everything, and social media is no different. And so, like when it comes to finding your community, it's the same with every community and like every club. There's always going to be an almost exclusionist view, but there's also going to be like the opportunity to not be that as well. So it all depends on like which group you end up in, and like that's something that I've been learning as well as like when it comes to like making friends. It's just like in like real life, you recognize that like there are some groups who are much more accepting than others, and that's just the same translated into social media. It's not really that different. I think like
I look at it
if
like if I have a group or a community and someone comes to me to join, as long as they're not assholes, they should be able to be joined into the group on the aspect of I don't think anybody should be left without one. I don't think anybody should be trying to go in somewhere because they really enjoy what's going on. It's like having a party. You invite everybody, but then you leave the one kid out at the end of the block because you don't like him or he doesn't fit the description of the party. It's like I don't ever want to shut that door on somebody. That's hard. I mean, I studied mental health for most of my college years. So it was like I didn't want to see after I saw how bad depression is and I saw little kids that were killing themselves over such things. I was like, I've been bullied. I know what that's like. And I don't want anybody to experience that sense of coldness because depression's a motherfucker, man. That shit doesn't go away. It's like a looming demon where you have your good days and bad days. But if you know what it's like when you're going through the middle of one of those bad days, you are like, I don't want to wish this upon anybody. And I guess that's just an empathy factor that I've developed through talking with so many people. I start to learn, like, oh, fuck, like we're all thinking the same thing, but like nobody wants to talk about it. Like there's just issues of the world. There's things on our minds. We have thoughts and feelings and emotions we want to express, but there's a sense of closeness because we don't know these people. So why would you talk about your feelings? I'm like, fuck it. Tell me what's going on. Tell me you just got in a fight with your girlfriend or whoever. I want to talk about it.
I yeah, I was definitely like that kid who would always get like not invited to the party as a kid. And the thing is, I've met a lot of people who are I'm very grateful for like letting me into their friend groups and like being friends with me. And it's the correct thing to do, I really think. Like um and it becomes a little bit more complicated when it comes to um groups that are like, for example, like you're talking about like trying to get into like gay Twitter or like into like
Wait, there's a
gay
gay
groups.
Twitter?
Oh yeah, of course. And
Fuck, another group.
well the thing is like when it comes to like that, it's a much more like nuanced issue where like it's entering into that as a person who doesn't belong to that group, like where you don't identify with it. Like it's very I think it's very different experience, and like your is a steeper learning curve on like what you're able to talk about, like how well you're able to talk about it.
Don't you think if there was something like gay Twitter or something, it should be open because then people that aren't gay that want to actually learn from it and be like, hey, Now I see what you're talking about. I can understand your perspective of it. But then I understand the point of there are probably going to be assholes that are going to join in too. That's just the issue with anything. You got to know that there's always going to be an asshole that you're going to end up letting in. But with all this stuff, I'm like, how am I supposed to understand perspectives if I can't fucking see what you guys are talking about or what the hell's going on? Like, I didn't know the issues on Twitter with PhDs and all this stuff of people like, I have a PhD, so I'm technically considered a doctor. I'm like, you're a doctor of comedy doesn't make you a legit doctor. That's a big thing going on. But I didn't understand that until I started following a bunch of people that were PhD academics and realizing it's a big fucking issue in their world. It's just not in my realm.
I mean, it actually, what was I gonna say? I think it's there's like a very big difference between people creating a safe space based around their identity and people who are looking to like understand their perspective. Like I know like when it comes to like gay bars, like there's a like a weird issue that's coming up right now, um which is as LGBT communities become more accepted and more open and the friend groups become more diverse as a whole, um, how does that affect gay bars that have been like very exclusively male for like a really long time? Um, and like there's a running gag where like, you know, like a bachelorette party will go to a gay bar because they think it's fun. And it's there's a big difference, I think, between um a tourist like a tourism viewpoint of a group and like using a group as a like thing to be around to say you've done it as opposed to actually learning from something. And like that's like the difference when it comes to social media. I'm probably not explaining that as well as I should. But like in social media, it's like the reason why people have exclusionary spaces is so that way they're able to talk freely about like the issues that affect them as a community and as a whole, as opposed to having people who they have to explain the issues to. But it's also great to have spaces where you're able to interact with people who don't have the same perspective as you do. So that way you're able to educate yourself on different things. It's it's like when I got into like the podcasting community, like one of the biggest things I had to learn, which was I wasn't really exposed to this like all throughout my life until I got into that was understanding and learning more about the non-binary community. And the thing is like it's something that like I had heard about like conceptually like in college, but I hadn't like had that much exposure to it. And then once I got involved in podcasting, I was able to meet a lot more people who identify as non-binary and like learn the ins and outs of like what that works and like is a just a constant learning curve. But like I would never be welcomed into a space that's for them specifically. And that's fine with me because I know that they have to have a space where they themselves are able to talk about issues that are impacting them and are able to talk about like their experiences without me intruding upon to ask a question
How many
and take away
podcasters are
from
you?
that.
How many podcasters you come across that are non-binary? I don't think I've met one yet.
Actually, like most people that I know here in New York, especially, are non-binary, and especially on Twitter.
Fucking different paths of life. That's nuts, man.
Um, yeah, and that's what's been really interesting is like being able to talk to them about like how and like especially like because of the people I follow on Twitter, I'm able to get a glimpse onto like how they view different issues and like how they view different films. And I love being able to see like how um it impacts like their intake of media.
It's
And
not a bad thing. I think it's just it's so amazing the fact of like we both have had different experiences in the podcasting universe.
uh yeah, I think there's like a really big difference between the audio drama community and like the general podcasting community. But that's also because like podcasting as a whole
So I
is
said it's a
such
different thing. It's a different thing.
yeah, but it's also like a much bigger thing too because
That's the issue of why it's see when a community gets so big is when it starts to become a competition. That's why a lot of these like I've talked to hot sauce community, I've talked to the ice cream community, I've talked to all these different communities. They sound like jokes. it's funny because if you say hot sauce community, you're like, there's a community on hot sauce. Yeah, it's a big market. I got about 3 people that are really close friends that sponsor me, and it's their sauces are good. They know who they are, those. But the fact of they look at podcasting community, audio drama community, they laugh. They don't, it's a different realm. It's like once you're involved in that community, it doesn't seem as ridiculous anymore. The only one I've seen that have really big egos are podcasting community and the chocolate community. Fuck. I think the chocolate community is really, really bad because of how a lot of, like, if you really look into the history of chocolate, it's really dark when it comes to child labor law shit. So they take that very, very seriously. But it also forms on the same line as plating. When a lot of people that are making like homemade chocolates, like, you know, how people start making sourdough bread and stuff. Well, there's like some hot sauce companies that are making their own chocolates that are spiced up, and they get shit from the chocolate community because those guys consider themselves artists, chocolatiers. So they get really, really aggressive when it comes to someone putting up makings of like a chocolate bar or something. They go, that's not real chocolate. You're not a chocolate. And they just go all insane. I'm like, you start to notice the bigger the group comes, the more they just seem to get angry and angry. It's like a guy, it's like an age thing. It's like when you see the first couple thousand, it's like a little baby. And by the time it hits 1 million, they're like a grumpy old man that's ready to die. Like, I don't want to be here anymore. It's like, all right, Jesus, walk off into the corner, man.
I I I think it's really hard to like classify. I think like one thing like what I think is really interesting about like the podcasting community, especially, is I think it's much, much bigger than the audio drama community ever will be, in terms of the fact that like not only are you having to compete with, you know, like the different genres as well, but I
It's
think it would be
the time effort in audio drama. Like I said, I give you guys credit for creating those because not, that's why there will always be more podcasters because it's so much easier to do a podcast than it is to do an audio drama. I mean, that obviously depends on the person, but an audio drama has so many bits and pieces to it. Like, I don't know how you guys sit and edit for that long. If I spend more than 5 minutes editing an episode, I just want to fucking jump out a window.
it takes a while. It really takes a while. And I was the one who decided, oh hey, on the Viridian Wild, I'm going to do unique creature noises to like make magical creatures come to life, and then on top of that do environmental noises because I wanted to do like live field recordings. And I was like, oh no, I just realized like I bit off way more than I could chew. And it's been like a really fun learning curve because I've actually been able to learn a lot about sound design from that. And it was very hard to do when I was first starting out, but now I've begun to be able to grasp um I use Reaper, and like one of my favorite tools is the panning tool, and I love being able to make sounds move from your left ear to your right ear and create like this realistic mapping effect where for example, if you want someone to like run across from you, you would just do like um you would take little bits and pieces of like the running sound and then pan the sound from the left to the right using different you would have like one little snippet that's like on the left side of your ear at like at 100%, and then you have like a 95, and then like 70, and then like so on. You would like decrease it as it goes from like left to right, from like left at the 100% to the right to the 100%.
And considering with podcasting, I could just do this and sound like I'm shouting, $1, $2, who you bullshitting? $1 over here. You know, I could just shout like that and throw my voice, and the mic will pick it up and make it sound like that.
Yeah, I mean, we do that too sometimes. Like I do know like some people will when dealing with like a certain thing, they'll like use the microphone. Like for example, like if you want to sound more far away, you'll pull away. And
Where'd you go?
what? Yeah, but what it does create more echo, so it's better for like a situation where you are in an echoey place. But then, or you could just talk right here and distort it to where it sounds like you're in an echoey place. So it all depends on like what you want to do and how you want to go about it. And I like, for example, in one episode I had, I think it was episode 4, episode 5, I can't remember which one, but I had um my character talked to mermaids via sign language, and the one thing I wanted to make sure that I did was make sure that I learned how to sign like what I was saying, in order so that way I could properly convey like in my voice and like how and my mannerisms and like the spacing of like translating that and enacting that would come across in the audio.
I was say, how the hell do you get sign language in an audio drama? That's kind of like defeats the purpose of sign language. You're supposed to see that.
I actually Uh, it was the AM archives on Luminary that did this, and like this is a team that brought to you like the Bright sessions and the college tapes, and the new hit show that's like gone like really big
Teen
called In
Titans.
Strange Woods.
Oh,
Uh, no,
damn it.
um, and they actually for their one episode in the AM archives, they actually were really smart about this. They had characters wear bracelets, like really big jangly bracelets. And so you were able to pick up on the movements of and the speed at which they were moving. So which is really interesting because like these two characters had an argument, and so you're able to hear like the different movements of like their sign language as they were signing it to each other.
I give you guys credit for all the work you guys do. Jeez, that's a lot of work, man. Just to even think on that level of like, how are these? Maybe we're gonna have to use jingly bracelets to be able to see what happens with our hand signals, so the listener can understand. I'm sitting there thinking, like, what is he holding up? He could be flicking off the camera right now. I have no clue because I'm listening.
Yeah, I mean, it's there's like a really interesting balance that you always have to hit between like what you're able to tell versus what you can show. And that was a very smart tactic that they did. And I think there's also like a lot of like interesting nuances like in terms of like how realistic should sounds be in an audio drama as opposed to like a film or a TV show, especially like a cartoon, like where like you can use pretty much any sound effect you want as long as it gets like the general idea. But especially for like me, I try to find like sound effects that sound as if they're coming from the thing I think it sounds like. Like I had to find a car door, but I didn't want I wanted like a very like Jeepish sounding car door at first, and I decided to go for um a hydraulic press one where where like it raises and it does like that little like
Yeah,
noise as it goes up, you know what I'm talking about? Um so the thing is that
it's
you
a it's a
had
it's a damn Cherokee,
a what?
Jeep Cherokee.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And so it's sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Someone in my family owned like 10 Jeeps, so like you're just giving me like nostalgia right now.
Yeah, and so like it's really interesting trying to find because I use free sound for most of my sound effects, if not all of them. And so what I try to do is try to find sound effects that sound like what I'm looking for in the situation I'm looking for them in. Um, so far, the most difficult sound effect to recreate that I've had to do twice now, for like two different shows, is swimming and drowning. And like the sound, like, and specifically the sound that I was trying to get was that sound that people have in movies and TV shows where you're underwater and you're able to hear like the water around you. And so I had to go and research and look into actually, I was doing this one show and I had to watch The Dragon Prince on Netflix because I wanted to understand like what sounds they used when doing horse riding. And I was really interested in like how does it work? How do they pan? And like what did they do? Like what effects do they use and when do they use them? And so that's actually like what I studied for a while. Um, and so I love watching shows now, especially cartoons. And like being able to pick up like the different sound effects like that they use. Like actually in the season 3 premiere of Castlevania, there's like this fight against a couple monsters, and they actually use the same sound effect that I use, which is a Boston Terrier sound. For episode 1 of the Viridian Wild. And so I use a Boston Terrier for like this one creature called a squonk, um, which is uh, it's known as like the ugliest animal in the world, and it's part of like the lumberjack tales of like American history. And so essentially like there's like this book floating around where it's a collection of magical creatures documented in American folklore at the time, and a lot of them are very joking jokey in a way. Like there's one creature that can
I've
only
seen it.
walk.
I've seen it.
You've seen it?
I've
Yeah.
seen it.
Yeah, so like I use the squonk from that, and I tried to make it as realistic as possible, and I used the African spine as animation for it. Because they're known to become puddles once caught. And so I was like, oh, that's a really cool ability. How can I like take advantage of that? Like, how would that work as a realistic defense mechanism? And so I had it like slip out of its skin and to run away from predators. And so that was based on the African spiny mouse, which will tear off its skin in order to run away, and it'll heal like very rapidly without scarring, which is an amazing feat. Um, and and I made it very pug-like in appearance. So like I tried to find pug sounds and I couldn't. So I found the next best thing, which was Boston Terrier sounds. And that same sound effect was used in Castlevania's third season premiere, and I was so happy when I saw it. I was ecstatic. I was like, "Oh, I know where that sounds from. I know who took that."
Dude, you've promoted enough of everybody else. Why don't you promote where people can find you at, man?
You were able to find the Viridian Wild on any podcatcher. If there is not a podcatcher that I'm not on, please let me know because I've tried to find them all. And so we're on Spotify. You're able to go to our website, www.theviridianwild.com. That is Viridian as in green. So it's Viridian. And you can download our RSS feed from there. Um, and we're a fantasy nature adventure audio drama about a mythozoologist who travels the world studying magical creatures.
What can you not love about that? That is a freaking amazing story.